The Legend of Zelda is one of the most deliberately mysterious games ever, hiding disturbing secrets, impossible paradoxes, and unexplained horrors that Nintendo refuses to address. That's why, today, I'm breaking down the 8 biggest mysteries from the entire Zelda franchise, ranked from least to most insane, and everything we actually know about them. Starting with a time paradox that breaks the laws of physics. The song. Ocarina of Time contains one of the most elegant impossibilities in gaming, and it's hiding inside a windmill. The Song of Storms is one of the most iconic melodies in the franchise, and here's the problem. It shouldn't exist. Nobody ever wrote it. Adult Link visits the Kakariko windmill, where the windmill man is furious. He rants about how some kid played a song 7 years ago that caused a terrible storm and messed up the windmill forever. In his anger, he teaches Link that exact song. Then Link travels back in time as a child and plays the Song of Storms for the Windmill Man, becoming the very kid who traumatized him 7 years earlier. Here's where it gets weird. Neither Link nor the Windmill Man composed the song. Link learned it from the Windmill Man as an adult. The Windmill Man learned it from Link as a child. The song exists in a closed loop with no origin point. This is called a bootstrap paradox, or an ontological paradox. It's a genuine philosophical problem. The song was never written, never invented, never first performed. It simply exists, perpetually cycling through time with no creator. The community has debated this since 1998. Some theories suggest the goddess of time planted it in the timeline. Others argue it proves Ocarina's time travel creates information from nothing, violating conservation laws. Nintendo has never commented on it. The Windmill Man's dialogue explicitly creates the paradox, and the game provides zero resolution. No alternative origin, no explanation. Just a perfect little impossibility sitting inside one of gaming's most beloved titles. The Song of Storms is proof that Zelda's time travel mechanics aren't just gameplay. They're genuinely broken physics that the developers left unresolved on purpose. But if you think a song with no composer is disturbing, wait until you see the statue that shows Link's true face. The statue. In Majora's Mask, there's a statue of Link that shouldn't be smiling. The Elegy of Emptiness is a song that creates hollow shell replicas of Link's current form. The undead king of Icona teaches it to you, explaining these are soulless soldiers with no feelings, no thoughts, no free will, just empty shells. 3 of the 4 statues you can create represent confirmed dead people. The Deku scrub form is the Deku butler's son, whose twisted corpse you find beneath the clock tower. Darmani is the Goron hero, who froze to death in a blizzard. Mikao is the Zora guitarist who drowned trying to save the stolen eggs. All 3 of their statues have the same lifeless appearance. Blank, empty white eyes, staring at nothing. Link's statue is different. He has visible pupils and irises, and he's smiling, not a subtle grin. An uncanny, frozen, vacant smile with wide, staring eyes. If the elegy creates emotionless shells of the dead, why is Link's statue displaying an emotion? Why is he the only one smiling? The dominant community interpretation is genuinely unsettling. Link has internalized a fake smile so deeply as a coping mechanism that it manifests even in his soulless form. His surface-level cheerfulness is itself a kind of emptiness, a mask he can't remove. The moon children inside the moon literally ask him this. One says, "I wonder, the face under the mask, is that your real face?" The game is directly questioning whether Link's heroic persona is authentic or just another transformation. Here's the kicker. The word elegy means a funeral poem. 3 of the 4 subjects are dead. The 4th is Link. The implied question hangs over the entire game. Is Link also dead? Is Termina the afterlife? Hyrule Historia later confirmed that this Link, the hero of time, becomes the hero's shade in Twilight Princess, a skeletal spirit consumed by regret over being forgotten by history. The elegy statue might be the first glimpse of that emotional death, 20 years before Link physically becomes a ghost. This statue became iconic through the Ben Drowned creepypasta, but the in-game context is more disturbing than any fan creation. Nintendo built a monument to their hero's psychological collapse and left it unexplained in a children's game, but at least Link's emptiness is metaphorical. The next mystery is about a hero who literally erases an entire world from existence. The Island, Link's Awakening, contains what might be the darkest premise Nintendo has ever approved. The entire game is about genocide. You spend the whole adventure knowingly working toward the annihilation of an entire civilization, and the game makes you do it anyway. Here's what happens. Link gets shipwrecked on Koholint Island. It's peaceful, charming, full of friendly characters and thriving villages. About halfway through the game, you discover the truth. The entire island exists inside the dream of a sleeping deity called the Windfish. Every person, every animal, every building, all dream constructs. And the only way for Link to escape is to wake the Windfish, which will erase everything and everyone from existence. The game reveals this at the halfway point. That's the genius evil of it. You spend the entire second half knowing exactly what you're doing. The inhabitants are fully sentient and self-aware. Marin, Link's closest companion on the island, stares out at the ocean and tells you she wishes she could leave Koholint and travel the world, singing for people everywhere. It's a dream she can never achieve because she is a dream. She doesn't know it, but you do. And you keep playing. The game's bosses, the nightmares, try desperately to stop you, not because they're evil, because they want to continue existing. One of them warns you directly. If the windfish doesn't wake up, this island will never disappear. They're begging for their lives. In the final area, the windfish speaks to Link and explains everything. In my dreams, an egg appeared and was surrounded by an island, with people, animals, and an entire world. But verily, it be the nature of dreams to end. That's not a villain speech, that's an apology. If you beat the game without dying once, you get the good ending. Marin appears to transform into a seagull as the island fades, seemingly the only character given even a whisper of survival. Everyone else simply ceases to exist. No afterlife, no reincarnation. They just stop being real. Link isn't saving the world, he's destroying one. The hero is the villain. And the game published this in 1993, with a happy soundtrack and a Game Boy cartridge. There's even a library book on the island called Dark Secrets and Mysteries of Koholint that hints others studied the dream's nature before Link arrived, meaning this has happened before. Meaning Link isn't the first person to murder an entire world just to go home. At least Koholint's destruction was necessary for Link to survive. The next mystery is about a torture facility that existed for no reason except cruelty. The Temple. Ocarina of Time has a government-sanctioned torture dungeon hidden beneath a peaceful village, and Nintendo put it in a game rated E for everyone. The Shadow Temple is one of the most disturbing locations in any Nintendo game, and the horrifying part is that it's completely intentional. The moment you enter, disembodied voices whisper at you, Shadow Temple. Here is gathered Hyrule's bloody history of greed and hatred. Not metaphorical darkness, literal blood. The dungeon is filled with guillotines, spinning scythe blades, blood-stained walls, coffins, and a ferry to the other world. That's not symbolism, it's literally a boat that takes you to the afterlife. The blood on the walls is red, not purple, not black. Red blood in a Nintendo game from 1998, which survived every censorship pass and made it into the 3DS remake. The Hyrule Encyclopedia later confirmed exactly what everyone suspected. The Shadow Temple is a place where the Sheikah, entrusted with the lives of Hyrule's royal family, have historically taken enemies of the royal family to be interrogated, or worse. It was taboo for the royal family to speak of. That's the official lore. The royal family of Hyrule, Princess Zelda's family, maintained a secret torture facility and mass grave beneath Kakariko village. The Sheikah, their sworn protectors, were the ones staffing it. The bottom of the well connects directly to this complex and contains even more nightmare fuel. Fake walls, invisible paths, and Dead Hand. Dead Hand is one of the most disturbing enemy designs in gaming history. It's a pale, blood-covered mass that looks like fused human flesh. It has a bulbous body, tiny arms ending in sharp red spines, blank black eyes, and a jaw that opens impossibly wide. To fight it, you have to let disembodied hands grab you from underground and hold you in place while this thing slowly shambles toward your helpless character. Nintendo has never explained what Dead Hand is. Fan theories connect it to the Preta from Hindu-Buddhist mythology, hungry ghosts born from insatiable greed, which would fit the Shadow Temple's theme perfectly. The 3DS remake toned down the blood, essentially admitting the original was too horrifying, but still never explained the creature. Here's the implication that makes this so dark. The Sheikah symbol is an eye with a single tear beneath it. The community theory is that the tear represents mourning for what they were forced to do in service to the crown. They were loyal servants turned into executioners and torturers, maintaining a black site for political enemies. And this wasn't some ancient evil civilization. This was Hyrule, the good guys. Princess Zelda's ancestors built this, but at least the Shadow Temple is abandoned by the time you reach it. The next mystery is about a creature that's still very much alive and makes absolutely no biological sense. The creators. Twilight Princess introduces the Oka, and they might be the worst thing Nintendo has ever designed. They're small bird creatures with round bodies, ducktails, and disproportionately large, oblong heads with fully formed human faces. They look like someone decapitated a human and glued the head onto a chicken body. The younger Aka are literally just floating, disembodied human heads with tiny wings. They're treated as friendly, helpful NPCs, and then the game reveals their lore. A scholar named Shad studies ancient texts throughout the game. He eventually explains that according to these texts, a race even closer to the gods than the Alpha Hylian people created Hyrule itself and simultaneously built a capital city floating in the heavens. The game never explicitly says the Uka are this race, but the implication is unmistakable. These horrifying chicken people with human faces are supposedly the ancestor race that founded Hylian civilization. The Hyrule Historia confirms their design is based on M.C. Escher's surrealist artwork, which explains the impossible anatomy but not why Nintendo thought this was a good origin story for their entire franchise. The community has largely rejected this at face value, and here's why. The city in the sky doesn't fit its inhabitants. The architecture has walkways, pools, and structures clearly designed for human-sized visitors, not tiny bird creatures. Underground in Kakariko village, there are ancient stone reliefs showing humans bowing before giant Uka-like figures and ascending to the sky on ropes. The dominant theory is that the Uka aren't the precursor race at all. They're pets or failed experiments left behind when the real creators vanished. The Uka simply squatted in the abandoned city and claimed its legacy as their own. Another theory connects them to Skyloft from Skyward Sword. Maybe the Uka are degenerated descendants of Skyloftians who refused to return to the surface after the rest of their civilization descended. Over thousands of years, they devolved into these nightmare creatures and forgot their own history. It would explain why they live in the sky and why their city's architecture doesn't match their current form. But here's what makes this genuinely insane. Nintendo has never clarified. One of the most fundamental questions in Zelda lore, who created Hyrule, is answered only by pointing at creatures that look like they crawled out of a fever dream, and the developers just moved on. Skyward Sword later depicted a completely different founding of Hyrule involving the goddess Hylia and people descending from Skyloft, which contradicts the Uka's supposed role entirely. Either the lore is broken, or there have been multiple foundings of Hyrule across different eras, which opens up even more questions. The Uka remains one of the franchise's most baffling design choices. They're visually disturbing, narratively confusing, and thematically bizarre. And Nintendo introduced them, implied they're your ancestors, and never explained it. But at least the Uka are just weird looking. The next mystery is about a civilization that deliberately tried to challenge the gods and got exactly what they deserved. They Tower. Majora's Mask has an entire temple built specifically to insult the gods, and the game lets you watch divine punishment happen in real time. The Kingdom of Ikana is a land of the dead, an entire civilization reduced to wandering ghosts, reanimated soldiers, and cursed spirits. King Egos du Ikana tells you the curse can only be lifted if you seal the doors of Stone Tower where the winds of darkness blow through. A devastating war between Ikana and a rival nation called the Garo destroyed everything. But the real story is what Stone Tower actually is and why it exists. In 2006, Zelda Universe published a detailed architectural analysis that identified something extraordinary. Stone Tower Temple's exterior features statues with their tongues extended between their legs, licking the Triforce positioned at their genitals. This isn't a fan interpretation, it's physically modeled in the game. 4 phallic stone pillars surround the entrance. A burning hand carved into the exterior points toward the heavens, which is widely recognized as an obscene gesture directed at the gods. Inside the temple, every Triforce symbol appears exclusively on the bottom of floating blocks, visible only from below. Another deliberate act of contempt. The temple is a Tower of Babel analog. It was built to reach and challenge the heavens. And here's where Nintendo's design genius shows. When you shoot a red emblem with light arrows, the entire temple flips upside down. What was reaching toward the sky now plunges into the underworld. The builders sought to challenge the gods, and the gods cast them down. Their tower was inverted as punishment. Their kingdom was cursed into undeath. The game doesn't tell you this through dialogue. It tells you through architecture and mechanics. The Garo Master awaits at the temple's deepest chamber. The Garo are ninja warriors who served as spies during the war, but there's evidence they might have been the ones who built Stone Tower in the first place. The Happy Mask Salesman mentions an ancient tribe that used Majora's Mask in hexing rituals. If the Garo are that tribe, then everything connects. Their blasphemous tower, their cursed mask rituals, Majora's presence in the Stone Tower carvings, and Ikana's apocalyptic fate all form a single narrative of hubris and retribution. The game never explicitly confirms this. It presents the evidence through environmental storytelling and lets you piece it together. Stone Tower is one of the most sophisticated examples of show don't tell in gaming. The developers built an entire dungeon around the theme of blasphemy, programmed a mechanic where the gods literally flipped the world upside down as punishment, and trusted players to understand what they were seeing. No cutscene, no exposition, just a temple that literally reaches for heaven and gets cast into hell. This is architectural horror at its finest. But architectural blasphemy is still just symbolism. The next mystery is about a mask whose power was mistranslated for 20 years, completely changing how English-speaking players understand one of the franchise's most important artifacts, the mask. The Fierce Deity's mask is the most powerful item in Majora's Mask, and almost everything the English-speaking community knows about it is wrong. For over 2 decades, players believed the Fierce Deity was evil, or at least morally questionable. The entire interpretation was built on mistranslation. In the English version, the Moonchild wearing Majora's Mask gives you the item and says, "Let's play good guys against bad guys. You're the bad guy, the true bad guy." The mask's description reads, "Could this mask's dark powers be as bad as Majora?" These lines fuel 20 years of theories about the fierce deity being a dangerous, corrupting force. None of this exists in the Japanese original. The Moonchild says, "How about tag? Yeah, that'll work." The phrase used is onigoko, which literally means pretending to be an oni. That's just the Japanese word for the game of tag. There's no good guys versus bad guys framing. There's no true bad guy line. The mask's Japanese name is Kishin no Kamen. In Shingon Buddhist tradition, Kishin refers to wrathful protector deities. Beings like the Myo-O who are terrifying toward evil but benevolent protectors of humanity. There is no dark powers line. The English localization invented the fierce deity's evil reputation entirely. Here's what we actually know. The mask transforms Link into a tall adult warrior with blank white eyes, spiral facial markings, a crescent moon on his chest armor, and a double helix sword that fires energy beams. A gossip stone in the game says the mask possesses the merits of all masks and contains the memories of all the people of Termina. That's not ominous, that's explicitly heroic. Breath of the Wild's fierce deity armor set describes it as belonging to a hero from another world who obtained godlike powers. Again, heroic framing. The non-canon manga even depicts a mysterious musician resembling the fierce deity who killed Majora by playing music for 3 days straight, causing the beast to dance itself to death. The leading theories all point toward the fierce deity being Termina's equivalent to Link. Every major Hyrulean character has a Terminan counterpart in Majora's Mask. Talon and Ingo become the Gorman brothers. Zelda becomes Princess of Ikana, but there's no clear Link equivalent walking around Termina. The fierce deity might be that missing counterpart the hero Termina would have had if Link hadn't arrived. Another theory suggests it's a lunar deity opposing Majora's solar nature. The crescent moon motif supports this. Majora literally lives inside the moon. The fierce deity has a moon on his chest. Light versus dark. Solar versus lunar. What makes this mystery so frustrating is that the translation issue means two separate communities have been theorizing in completely different directions for decades. English speakers treated the fierce deity as dangerous. Japanese speakers treated it as a powerful guardian. Neither group had the full picture. And Nintendo has never clarified the true nature of the most powerful transformation in one of their most beloved games. The fierce deity remains one of the franchise's most tantalizingly unresolved figures. No origin, no backstory, no explanation for its connection to Majora. Just raw power wrapped in a translation controversy that fundamentally shaped how millions of players understood the game's themes. But at least the fierce deity is a singular mystery. The next one is about an entire group of people who nearly conquered the gods themselves and were erased from history. The timeline. The biggest mystery in Zelda isn't hidden in any dungeon. It's the franchise's own history, and Nintendo has admitted they can't explain it. The official Zelda timeline is a contradictory mess that the developers themselves have repeatedly changed, denied, and undermined, and it gets worse the more you look at it. In 2011, Nintendo published the Hyrule Historia and revealed the official timeline for the first time. It splits 3 ways after Ocarina of Time. The adult timeline leads to Wind Waker. The child timeline leads to Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess. And then there's the Downfall timeline, a branch where Link loses to Ganon. There is no in-game depiction of this defeat. There's no cutscene showing it. Nintendo canonized a game over screen. They invented an entire timeline branch where the hero just fails. And that branch contains a link to the past, the original Legend of Zelda, and multiple other games. Here's the problem. If a hero fails, a timeline exists for Ocarina of Time. Logically, every game should spawn one. Why is OOT unique? Nintendo has never explained this. The real answer, widely acknowledged by fans and essentially confirmed by developers, is that the Downfall timeline was retroactively invented to make older games fit into a timeline they were never designed for. Series producer Eiji Aonuma admitted in an interview that the decided history has been tweaked many times. Translation: they're making it up as they go. Then Breath of the Wild broke everything. The game contains references to all 3 timelines simultaneously. It mentions Rudo and Naburu as sages, which only happens in the adult timeline. It references Twilight, which only exists in the child timeline. Its geography matches the Downfall timeline. When asked where Bot fits, Aonuma said it's at the very end of the timeline. But director Hidemaru Fujibayashi contradicted him and said which timeline is up to the player's imagination. 2 lead developers gave opposite answers. Both Rito and Zora exist in Breath of the Wild. In Wind Waker, the Rito evolved from the Zora because the ocean made their original forms obsolete. They can't coexist unless the timelines somehow which Nintendo has never suggested. Tears of the Kingdom made it even worse. It depicts an imprisoning war where Rauru and the Zonai seal Ganondorf underground, but A Link to the Past already described a completely different imprisoning war involving the 7 wise men, sealing Ganon in the Sacred Realm. Same name, different events, different characters, no explanation. Tears of the Kingdom also presents the Zonai as the founders of Hyrule, but Skyward Sword already showed Hyrule's founding through Hylia's chosen people, descending from Skyloft. Fujibayashi hinted at a solution in a Famitsu interview. He said even if there's a story about the founding of Hyrule, there's a possibility that Hyrule was destroyed once before that. Multiple findings, multiple destructions. A cycle of civilization that makes the published timeline completely inadequate. And where did all the Sheikah technology go between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom? The shrines, the divine beasts, the guardians, the towers, all of it just vanished. Fujibayashi told reporters they disappeared after the Calamity was defeated as their role had been fulfilled. The community widely regards this as a gameplay excuse, not real lore. Aonuma once confirmed that a confidential master timeline document exists that only he, Miyamoto, and the current game director can access. But his own public statements reveal that this document is constantly rewritten. Miyamoto himself said, "Above intra-series continuity, it's far more important to me that the player is left with a satisfying aftertaste once the experience is over." Translation: the story doesn't matter as much as the gameplay. The timeline isn't unsolved because we're missing clues. It's unsolved because the creators don't have a coherent answer, and they've essentially admitted it. The franchise's deepest mystery is that its own history might be genuinely unknowable, not because of missing information, but because coherence was never the priority. Zelda's timeline is Schrödinger's continuity. It exists in every state simultaneously until Nintendo observes it, and then they change their mind. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.